Okay, kids, so today we're going to be talking about impersonal say and impersonal say constructions. Now, impersonal say is used specifically when you're unsure of the subject of a particular sentence, when you don't want to give the subject, or when you are making generalized statements. Impersonal say is used quite a bit in Spanish for a variety of different reasons. The most common use of impersonal say is to make generalized statements, particularly when you look at things like window signs and street signs and signs that may appear on the sides of buildings or ads that are taken out in the newspapers. When you want to say certain things like Spanish is spoken here, that way their Spanish speakers know that if they enter a particular business that they can speak Spanish, or that an apartment might be for rent, or somebody's looking for something specific. For instance, say alquila apartamento. An apartment is for rent. We don't know who the subject is. We don't know who's doing the renting. But we know that an apartment is for rent. Okay? So in these particular cases, we're making generalized statements that may appear, again, in buildings or on window signs. We're not sure what the subject is. We may not want to give the subject, but we're making a generalized statement. We'll get into specific examples in later slides. Now, whether you're using the impersonal say or the passive say, both constructions are going to have a formula that you use in order to properly form the sentences. And the formula is very, very simple. It only has three parts to it. It has the word say, the verb that you want to use, and the object that you want to use. So no matter whether you're using passive say or impersonal say, the formula is the same. Say plus a verb plus an object. The say always stays, no matter what. No matter what, you're always going to start your sentence off with say. It does not matter what the verb is or what the object is, you always start with say. The verb can either be singular or plural. Much like the gustar-like verbs that we just talked about, the singular verb is going to be in the el, ella, usted form, and the plural is going to be in the ellos, ellas, ustedes form. So you only have two choices for the verbs: singular, la, usted, or plural, ellos, ellas, or ustedes. The object is going to determine which form of the verb you want to use. It's exactly the same concept as the gustar-like verbs. So, if the object, and we're going to see many, many examples of this in a minute, so it should make sense. But talking in theoretics, if the object is singular, or if the object is a verb, an infinitive, we're going to use the singular form of the verb. It has to match up. Okay? Say busca novio, looking for a boyfriend. Okay? Novio is singular. We're going to use a singular form of the verb. Say busca novio. If the object is plural, we're going to use the plural form of the verb. Se necesitan hispanohablantes. Spanish speakers are needed. Se necesitan hispanohablantes. Because hispanohablantes is plural, we're going to use the plural form of the verb. And again, you're going to see many, many examples of this to make it make sense. Again, everything has to match up. We're always going to use say to start, whether that's passive say or personal say. We always start with say. Then the verb, either the singular form of the verb or the plural form of the verb, and which one uses dependent upon the object. Singular object, singular verb. Plural object, plural verb. Okay, so these are some examples of some various sentences that use impersonal say. What I would recommend at this point is that you pause the video and give yourself a chance to copy down the sentences. That way we can go through them with them already written down and you're not copying while I'm talking. So again, just a suggestion to kind of stop the video at this point, write down the sentences, and then come back to it when you're ready. So let's take a look at some of the sentences that we have here. Again, these are for impersonal say, so when we're trying to make generalized statements or when we have unknown subjects. So the first sentence, for instance, se prohíbe fumar. Se prohíbe fumar. Again, a good idea with these when you're trying to figure out what they're saying in English is to almost work backwards. Same kind of concept as we had with the gustar-like verb. So almost working from right going back towards left. Smoking is prohibited here. Okay, smoking is prohibited. Again, you have your construction. You have say plus your verb plus your object. If the object is singular or a verb, we use a singular verb. If the object is plural, we're going to use a plural verb. For instance, in this case, we have an infinitive, fumar. So we're going to use a singular verb in the LA usted form. Se prohíbe fumar. Smoking is prohibited. Number 2, se cambian cheques aquí. Se cambian cheques aquí. Checks, again, working right to left, checks are cashed here. Checks are cashed here or changed in here. Again, we have say plus your verb plus your object. In this case, it's different than number 1. Our object here is plural. Notice the S. So therefore, our verb is plural. In the ellos ustedes form, se cambian cheques. Checks are cashed here. Here's a common one that you might see outside of a pool, for instance, in a hotel. No se puede nadar en la piscina después de las 10. One should not swim in the pool after 10 o'clock. One should not swim in the pool after 10 o'clock. Very common in hotels. You might even see this in beaches, like swim at your own risk, that kind of thing. Lifeguard not on duty, okay? So again, we have an infinitive. So we're going to use the singular form of the verb. Say plus the verb plus the object. Say plus the verb plus the object. In this case, the verb is singular because we're using an infinitive. Se busca una mujer que es rica. Se busca una mujer que es rica. Looking for a woman that is rich. Okay, almost like you're taking out a personal ad. Okay, se busca una mujer que es rica. Again, say plus the verb plus the object. In this case, the object is singular. Our verb is singular. No se hacía eso. One should not do that. One thing that's important to realize is just like gustar-like verbs, impersonal say can be used in different verb tenses. Present, past, future, or conditional. Eso is singular. I'm going to use a singular verb. Say, verb, object. In this case, one should not do that, or one did not do that. For instance, if you were thinking about a sign maybe that you might see on a restaurant, say in the 1950s, okay, before the Civil Rights Movement, you might see something along the lines of African Americans not permitted to eat here. Not that we do that anymore, but this would be a sign that you would typically see back in those times. And again, my verb would be in the past in this case. So you can do it in any tense. I will be looking for a girlfriend that is rich. Se buscará una mujer que es rica. Okay. So again, say plus the verb plus the object, and the object will dictate whether the verb should be singular or plural. So just a couple nitpicky things here with impersonal say, no big deal, but sometimes you're going to have your object be a reflexive verb. For instance, if I were to use the verb divertirse, to have fun. Let's say I want to make a sentence saying something along the lines of, one can have fun here. Let's say we're talking about an amusement park. Se puede divertir. Now, the reason why I bring this up is really twofold. One is, what are we going to do with this say at the end of the reflexive? And how does that affect this say that is already here? Okay? So one thing we're not going to do is put another say. We're not going to have se puede divertir. So what happens is, with the impersonal say, if the object, like we have right here, is a reflexive, such as divertirse, we're going to add the word uno at the beginning of the sentence. This uno here indicates to me that the object that we're using later on is going to be a verb, and more specifically, that the object that's a verb is a reflexive. Okay? For instance, you might have something like, one cannot bathe themselves here. Okay, it might be a public pool or something along those lines, okay? Uno no se puede bañar aquí. Uno no se puede bañar aquí. Again, we're still conjugating our verb based on this object, but if that object is a reflexive, we need to add the word uno at the beginning of the sentence. That almost clarifies or tells us that the object later on that we're going to use is a reflexive verb. And again, how do we know the verb is reflexive? Well, because of this SE at the end. And we've been over that plenty of times. The other thing with impersonal say that we have to be careful of is when we have lists of objects. For instance, if you want to say that French and Italian is spoken here. Se habla francés y italiano. This is a little sticking point, a little thing that adds up to be important in the long run. It's a little tricky because it's different than the gustar-like verbs. In the gustar-like verbs, if we had a list of objects, even if all the objects were singular, we use the plural form of the verb. For instance, me gustan pizza y helado. Impersonal say is the opposite of that. If there is a list of objects and those objects are all singular, I'm going to keep the singular form of the verb. Se habla francés y italiano. If, for instance, however, the list of objects is plural, or even if one of the objects is plural, we're going to have a plural verb. For instance, se buscan apartamento y casas. One is looking for an apartment, and houses. Because this second object here is plural, my verb is now plural. Okay, so just pay attention to that. Lists of objects that are all singular verb. List of objects that's plural would be a plural verb, or a list of objects where we have a mixture of singular and plural words, it's going to be a plural verb. So just be careful with those two items. These are just some examples of some different signs that you might see using the impersonal say construction. Here's one from Barack Obama. Yes, one can. Si se puede. Si se puede. Again, singular verb. Okay, singular verb. Singular verb, singular object. Again, se alquila. For instance, this might be an apartment for rent. Here's the phone number to call. Se alquila apartamento. Okay, so I have a singular object, so I have a singular verb. This one right here in particular, very, very common in any Spanish-speaking area, Spanish-speaking country. You'll see these in window signs all the time. Rooms for rent in a hotel, apartments for rent, buildings that are for rent or for sale, houses, same thing. Very, very, very common. Again, just some examples of different signs that you might see with impersonal say. For instance, we have a park here where they don't allow pets. No se permitan mascotas. Pets are not permitted. Again, we have a plural subject, so we're going to have a plural verb. Pets are not permitted. Here's another one. We got this poor guy. He's looking for a girlfriend. Se busca novia con carro. Specifically, he wants a girlfriend with a car. Okay, maybe he lives in mom's basement and he doesn't have a car. Okay, he doesn't want mom to take him around on the date, so he needs a girlfriend with a car. Se busca novia con carro. Interesadas mandar foto del carro. Those that are interested, please send me a picture of your car. Again, he's looking for a girlfriend, singular, so we're going to have a singular verb. Se busca novia con carro. Poor guy. Lastly, what I have here for you is just some quick practice that you can do in the present tense, putting these sentences together using your construction of say, plus your verb, plus your object. Again, I would recommend that you pause it, try these, and then turn it back on and go over the answers. So hopefully now that you've had time to work on these, again, you're just going to put it together. Say, plus your verb, plus your object. Se busca trabajo, looking for work. Object is singular, verb is singular. Se habla francés y español. French and Spanish is spoken. Again, as we talked about, we've got an N in there, francés. My bad. Again, when you have a list of objects and they're singular, we're still going to use the singular verb. Se habla francés y español. Se necesita casa con dos pisos. Need a house with 2 floors. Casa singular, verb is singular. Oh, this poor guy. Worse than the kid looking for a girlfriend with a car. Friends are wanted. Got no friends. Se quieren amigos. Okay, se quieren amigos. Amigos is plural, so my verb is going to be plural. And that's pretty much it. That is the impersonal say and the passive say together. Say plus your verb plus an object. Okay, easy peasy. Hopefully you enjoyed. Okay, kids?